horror stories of school nurses giving way too much insulin.
And kudos to those school nurses that go above and beyond.
Their kids go to private school and they don't even have a school nurse.
Palmr just really represents type 1 diabetes, and it doesn't matter if you have it or if you're a caregiver or you have a friend or know somebody with type 1.
Hey Palmer fam, I'm Rebecca.
And I'm Nick.
And welcome back to another episode of the Urgent Lows, where we talk about lifestyle and type 1 diabetes.
Here, we believe in embracing self-care through life's challenges. We are back with another episode.
You look real tropical over there.
Oh, really? Yeah, I like this outfit. Where'd you buy this one from?
I bought it for you at Palmer Style.
Oh, nice. I like it. I should probably get some more things from Palmer Style.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Yeah, selfish plug. All right. I love it.
Or Nick's dad jokes.
Today, we're actually going to talk about type 1 diabetes and going to school. So our kids are obviously in school. They are 8 and 12, almost 9 and 12, actually. Oh, my goodness. But they're in school. It is a whirlwind when you're dealing with type 1 diabetes with kids while going to school.
Yes.
First off, just to clarify, our kids go to private school, and things are very different when you are in a private school versus a public school. So a lot of the experiences that we have is us going to a private school, but I have heard so many horror stories from other parents in both the private school and public school realm. I'm by far no expert in any of this. Don't want to pretend like I know how everything works. We are in Florida, so a lot of things I know is things are in Florida. Could be different in different states. But one of the things that, if I understand correctly, is that actually private schools do not need to follow the same rules as public schools. And as someone will kind of dive in more as we go, but things are different when you're dealing with a private school and a public school. We are very thankful that the private school that our kids go to is absolutely fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And I cannot say enough good things about them, what they do, the school nurse, everything.
Yeah, because we know of people that their kids go to private school and they don't even have a school nurse
They don't.
at their school, which is crazy.
Yeah, actually a crazy story to go along with that. The school that I went to a small private school for middle school and high school. And my parents actually taught at that school up until a few years ago. And at some point, a few years after Parker was diagnosed and they became obviously very familiar, they had a high schooler apply to go to that school.
Mhm.
And they found out about it and they were excited to know that, hey, there's a type 1 diabetic. They're very familiar with it and care about all that now. And the school actually rejected the kid. It would not allow the kid to come because he had type 1 diabetes. And their reason was that, even though he was a high schooler, he knew how to fully manage their diabetes. They did not have a school nurse. And more importantly, they just did not want to take the responsibility of having a type 1 diabetic in the school. So they flat out rejected him.
I didn't even know that was a thing, that you could literally get rejected for that.
You can. And my parents were very upset about it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's because a private school doesn't have to take you. They can turn you down for any reason, including a medical, if they don't feel like they want to deal with it or for
Or
whatever
even if
reason.
they can handle it
Yeah,
or take on that liability. 'Cause
exactly.
it is a liability.
It is.
Yeah.
And obviously it's not fair because obviously I don't know this person. I don't know anything about them or who they are. But, as a parent now, like I would be devastated, because especially in that town, it was a small town. There was only really one private school,
Mhm.
and the public school is horrible. And so maybe the parents were trying to get him into a better situation and a better education and lifestyle,
Yeah.
and then to be turned down because their kid had type 1 diabetes is horrible. But that is the thing. So with a private school, we had a absolutely fantastic experience with ours, but that is not always the case. And a private school does not have to follow the rules or even agree to allow the kid to come.
Or even help with their managing of the diabetes,
Yeah.
which we love our school nurse. She is godsend, and, I mean, she's taken Parker and Evie in like they're her own children, and she cares for them, and it's amazing what she does and what she goes through every day, but it's hard because, like, before I became a stepmom to Parker and Evie, I literally just saw, like, my sister when, for example, when her kids go to school, like, that's her time that she's working. They're both getting things done. Like, you know what I mean? And it's kind of like a quote unquote break you get during the day to be able to provide for your family and have a job. And just because the kids are in school does not mean that we're completely off the hook.
No.
Even with us having such a good school nurse, we're still not off the hook.
Yeah.
There are still things and situations that arise, and the school nurse is going to be contacting you, and you need to be able to answer your phone when she's reaching out to you because she's reaching out to you for a reason.
Exactly. And the school nurse has a big job. She's the only school nurse there. It's not like there's multiple school nurses. This is a smaller private school, but there's still a few hundred kids at this campus,
Yeah.
and she's responsible for all of them. There's sick kids, there's other ones, there's kids with allergies. So not only is she trying to handle a handful of kids, and I believe there was at one point 3 or 4 kids at the school with type 1, 2 of them being ours. She had a big job of not only watching those kids, but everybody in the school, and she's not always available and can't handle everything and be on alert. And so it does fall into the parents to keep an eye on things. And I have to be on alert at all times with my job that if I get a phone call and I see it's the school nurse, I need to pretty much stop what I'm doing and go answer it because if she's calling me, there's a reason for it. And so I've had to explain to my staff that when the school nurse calls, I'm sorry, no matter how important this really is, I have to take a quick break and go answer it and find out what's going on because there's a reason why she's calling. And she knows how to manage this. She's been doing it for a very long time. But it's a lot of responsibility on her to make decisions. And a lot of times she does. She wants to pick our brains. Hey, this is what I'm thinking. What do you think? The last thing you want to do is her to even get in trouble and because she did something incorrect. She's not an expert by any means. She is a nurse, but she's not a diabetic doctor or
Hmm.
nurse or anything like that. So it's a lot of pressure on her, but she is absolutely a rock star for everything she does. And I'm actually going to reach out to her this week and actually say if she would actually be interested in coming on the podcast because I think it'd be awesome to hear from her and her side of things. But we could not be more blessed to say that, hey, we have a school that is so supportive, so loving. Everybody in that school knows who Parker and Evie is,
Hmm.
knows they have diabetes, goes above and beyond for them. But sadly, that is not the case for everyone.
Yeah. And we've heard over the year of having Palmer and having our platform, horror stories of school nurses giving way too much insulin, like just really, really sad stories. And then even stories of like, yeah, the school that my child goes to, they don't have a school nurse. Like it's literally on me and my child to be communicating throughout the day for them to manage their diabetes, which that's a lot, and our heart goes out to them, and, I mean, we get it to a point because, we're still on call when the kids are at school, but something that's very interesting, and I didn't even, like, before, didn't even think about it, but why don't you talk about every morning school lunches and kids and school lunches at school and all that and what goes into it and what you kinda prepare for them to take with them to school every day.
Since my kids have been in school, I have made their school lunches every single day. My son is now in 6th grade, my daughter's in 3rd, and so that's a lot of school lunches, and so I have a system in place, but I have to wake up every morning. Before them, I start making the lunches, I prep it, and then on top of it, I am leaving a piece of paper in there with all of the carb counts for the kids and the school nurse to, 1, make sure help them out, right? They
Mm.
need to know, and I have a better idea, and if I'm using something, making something, I have a better idea what that is, and so, for a lot of parents that don't make school lunches, and we'll use your nephews, for example, they just get lunch from school every day, and you first off, you hear about all the crazy things,
Like,
right?
the amount of ice cream that I hear they're
Yes.
having on a daily basis, I'm like, "Wait, what?
Mhm.
Like, what?"
Yeah, and they're like, "Oh, I had 2 chocolate milks today."
Yeah.
2 chocolate milks, 2 hamburgers, an ice cream, and chips, and I'm just like, "OMG, if my kid ate that, like, that would be, like, 200 carbs
Yeah.
right there, right?" And, like,
And, like, I think about, like, back when I was in school, like, I guess there was, like, that kind of freedom, but I don't know, maybe I was on a limited budget than my nephews are right now.
yeah, we definitely did not have the same options that they did.
But I know that in my high school, I did Chick-fil-A was out there every morning,
Mm.
and you could get Chick-fil-A chicken sandwiches for breakfast every morning, like, if you wanted to, like, they were for sale. So I can't even imagine that because that would, again, skyrocket Parker and Evie, you know?
And so that is a challenge that we have to do that every single day to make sure that we know, like, 1, we wanna make sure they're gonna eat something that is, healthier, that's easier to manage, just like we talked about on the last podcast of, the you can eat things that are gonna help your blood sugar be better, and I'm trying to balance things. I want my kids to be able to eat certain things. And if there's a day where my son wants to have ramen because he loves those instant ramen things, there's a lot of carbs in that, but I make sure everything else that's in his meal is going to be low carb.
Yeah.
And vice versa, where if he has a meal where it is mostly like protein based or like chicken is like the main thing,
Mhm.
then I will be a little bit more relaxed and maybe he has chips that day and some other things that are going to be have a little bit more carbs in it. So I'm trying to balance and have so he's not going super crazy because again, the worse he eats at school, the more work it's also going to be on the school nurse.
Yeah, and then also time that they're not in their classroom learning.
Yeah, and that's a big thing that I'm glad you brought up because I think that's one of the biggest challenges that we see with our kids
Yeah.
is that even though their blood sugar is pretty good during the day, yes, there's times they have to get out because they're going high, they're going low, all these type of things, and maybe they leave a little bit early to go to the school nurse to go get their insulin before they go to lunch, but they miss class a lot,
Yeah, there's a lot that they miss.
and, like, they'll do not too great on a test, and I'll be like, "Hey, what happened here? Like, why" or a quiz or something or homework.
Yeah.
Like, I can't tell you how many times, like, Evie came home with her homework or the school will send her schoolwork home, say, "Hey, she missed this because she was not in class, so she needs to make up." And the kids just don't know it because they weren't there in class for, 15, 20 minutes while they were in the school nurse's office.
Yeah, and that's where we get tested with our, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, 4th grade math.
Yes. And let me tell you, for the parents out there, here's a big parenting hack. ChatGPT is the world's greatest thing when it comes to helping your kids with their homework because I can't tell you how much stuff I don't know or don't remember. And I can take a picture of something and throw it in the ChatGPT and it will. And what I do is like, all right, I tell ChatGPT to explain it to me so I can then teach my kid.
Yeah, because you have to show your work,
Yes.
especially for math, like, you have to show your work, and it's like, "Alright,
Don't just give me the answer. I need to understand how you get that answer so I can show the kid
yeah, because
do it.
we as adults, we can get to the answer, but then showing our work, it's like, "Wow, you're really taking us back." And it's really funny, my parents were, like, dying laughing with this because one day Parker was, like needed help with, like, math. I think it was, like, long division, I don't even know what it was, but I actually, like did pretty good, and I could tell him how to, like, write out, how, like, show his work and everything. So he kinda just, like, was like, "Oh, Becca's so good at math." Math was not my strong suit whatsoever the whole time I was in school, and then my parents overheard him saying that one day, like, "Oh, Becca's so good with math, she always helps me with my math homework," and they were just laughing like, "Are you talking about our daughter? Like, what?" Like yeah, but, we almost have to become teachers,
Oh, yeah.
and we kinda, like, laugh, and I said this one day, I thought about this of, like, when, like, kids are like, "Oh, sorry, my dog ate my homework," or, like, kind of like an excuse like that, like, literally, they have a legitimate excuse of, "Oh, I was in the school nurse's office when we learned about this. I have no idea what this is." And it's you can't really get upset with them because they're telling you the truth. They really don't know how to do this portion of their homework because they weren't in class. And that really, like, blew my mind because at the beginning, I'm like, "Come on. You're telling me you have no idea how to do this? Like, why would they give you a quiz if you have no idea how to do this?" And it was like, "Oh, I was at the school nurse while it," and let's just say sometimes, I swear, Parker and Evie know what they're doing, and they take a little longer to get back to the classroom from the school nurse because it's like, "You missed this entire lesson." But that even with that being said, we had to really think about the breakfast we give to the kids prior to them going to school. Like, breakfast is really the most important meal, and for having 2 diabetic kids, like, even more so. But we really had to hone in on what we were feeding them because you run the risk of feeding them a certain breakfast, and even if you bolus them correctly, give them enough insulin based off of the carb count, if it's certain items and certain foods, it could have a delayed reaction, and they could be well into the first 2 hours of school, and they're flying up. And then that's more work on the nurse having to get them down, so then you're trying to treat them, trying to get them down, and I can only imagine for the school nurse how difficult that is because it's not like we provide them what they had for breakfast, we only provide them the car count for lunch. So it's like she's kinda going into it blindly of, like, what did they have for breakfast? And, like, and then that's really when she starts to contact you of, like, "Hey, like, what's going on? How much have they already had?" And then also, like, it came to a point, I think it was, like, either I forgot if it was either Parker or Evie, it was last school year that they were just going so high every morning, and it was just a thing, and then they were missing out on, like, certain schoolwork and it was, like, a thing, it was, like, every morning, like, their first classes, they were, like, missing out on because, they were in the school of nurses trying to get them down, and we really made it an effort of, we really need to hone in on these breakfasts and make sure it's protein based, number 1, and then from there, make sure that we're like, bolusing them correctly, but
Mhm.
man,
It
breakfast is
bolsters them
hard.
early, and that's the
Yeah,
biggest thing is it works the best when you bolus them, like, a good 20 minutes before they actually start eating. So, I try to do that best I
but
can.
then in reality, you don't know what they're actually gonna eat,
Yes.
'cause that's the thing, like, they're both tired, it's the morning time, they don't wanna be eating right away, and then, God forbid, you bolus them for a certain amount of all their food and they don't even eat half of it.
Mhm.
Well, now you're running the risk of now they're gonna tank because they're not having what insulin you gave them.
Yeah, and then they're in class in the first period, and they're tanking.
Yeah.
So, and then school nurses out they're in the school nurse office having Gatorade, doing things, trying to get back up, right? So that's always a big thing. And then another big one I know for us is, you know, kids in the class are gonna have birthday parties, there are gonna be special events, and there's
School
candy and
projects and
cake and ice cream and donuts. Like, donuts are always something that seems to be I can't tell you how many times the school nurses call and say, "Hey, guess what? We got donuts today." And she kinda just laughs on the phone because she knows, like, "Oh, man, here we go." And the good news is the kids have been a really good sport where they'll know that, "Hey, I can't eat everything that everybody else is gonna eat. I can have some." But a lot of times, like, if it is a donut, for example, because man, those donuts have a lot of carbs in it, we say, "All right, you can have half the donut, you're gonna put the rest in a bag, and then you'll have it for a snack later on or something, right, when you come home." but we can't have you eat the entire donut right now
Mhm.
in this current situation. And but it is. There always seems to be some type of party or something additional going on you have to be thinking about.
Well, even Parker with these school science projects and stuff where they're, like, testing out different candies, and it's like, "Really?" Like, they're about to do a science project that requires them to try 7 different pieces of candy, like, this is not gonna end well. But yeah, but also, and I think this also goes for the school nurse too, we want Parker and Evie to not live such a different life. Like, they're in school, like, we don't want them to feel different. We don't wanna, like, cause attention to them, and I know with another episode where we had Bella and her sister on, it's like, actually talking because now they've gone through high school, both of them, and one has gone through college, but it's you really don't wanna cause more attention to yourself. Like, you already as an individual and you have type 1 diabetes, you feel different. So, you don't want to cause any more attention or bring, like, the spotlight on you, especially when, like, you have alarms going off in the middle of class or whatever the case may be. And it's like, I can't imagine, I'm happy and grateful that Parker and Evie have really come a long way with their diabetes, and they really kind of embrace it, and they have, like, confidence around it, and I love that about them. Like, they are 2 little confident kids that especially with having type 1 diabetes, and I can only imagine, like, thinking back to when I was in school being like, "Oh, why is that kid only eating half the donut and putting the rest away?" Like, kids look at that and they're like, "Why is that?" But I really do love, and we brought this up to somebody, we were lucky enough to meet someone that has type 1 diabetes that actually came and visited us at our warehouse, and he got diagnosed when he was 18, and we were telling him, like, we're super lucky that Parker and Evie, like, they've haven't, knock on wood, gotten in a situation where they've been made fun of or, their diabetes has been a reason why they've been picked on or anything like that. And I'm like, yeah, they have, like, a lot of confidence about it. Like, I mean, we've shared before in other episodes that, like, Evie kinda just thought it was just a way of life. Everyone got diabetes at a certain age of life, like, she grew up having her brother, and then she got it, and he really pointed out something in that, and I totally 100% believe in this, but it really goes back to how you raised them as their parent and, like, when they got diabetes and how you kinda had the conversation with them and the way you parented them to feel confident in what they have. And then also another confident booster, and I have seen it personally, has been us doing Palmer. Like, they love seeing how obsessed these neighborhood kids are with Palmer, and they're all wearing Palmer, and it's like they all like have the fun colors on, or or friends of Parker's are wearing the Parker bucket hat, and like that totally. And we've said it before that we feel that Palmer's kind of that conversation starter of type 1 diabetes and everything. So we're kind of like having a part of their conversation had. But I think it's also like, wow, everyone in the neighborhood, they don't have type 1 diabetes, but they're wearing Palmer. Like, it's so cool. We love that.
Yeah, and it's all because of them, and they have type 1, so it's like a way that everybody shows them love, and that's really is I mean, it's a conversation that me and you were having this week with even our message for Palmer of how are we gonna market and talk about it,
Mhm.
and, we really wanna make it that Palmer just really represents type 1 diabetes, and it doesn't matter if you have it or if you're a caregiver or you have a friend or know somebody with type 1. You wear Palmer to show support and love for the people with type 1 diabetes. And that's really what we want to do. And we see it so much with our kids that you're right. Every time somebody's wearing Palmer, it shows them that they're loved. And even though they're different because they have this disease, they're also just like everybody else, because everybody is wearing it together.
Yeah.
And I mean, you just showed me right before we started filming this podcast, but somebody posted on social media that their son is playing a basketball game right now, and he has his basketball jersey on, and he's wearing the Palmer hybrid swim shorts underneath as his basketball bottoms, and he's out there just balling out and everything on it. And I was like, "Oh my god, it's so awesome. That's so
Yeah.
fun,
And he
right?"
doesn't have type 1
He
diabetes. It's
doesn't.
just people that we've met over time and they know us, they know the kids, and they want to support us.
Mhm.
Which I think that that was a fear that at least personally I had when we first started Palmer. I'm like, okay, well, we can't solely just focus on type 1 diabetes because not everyone has type 1 diabetes and then they won't buy from us or they won't like even give our brand a second look because they're thinking, oh, this is a brand that's not for me. But I have loved how it's evolved over time and seeing the support from people that didn't even know what type 1 diabetes was. Like, I have personal friends that didn't even really know what type 1 diabetes was, didn't really know the difference between type 1 and type 2, have kids of their own, but the way they come out and they wanna support us, like, they wanna support what we're doing in our mission, but also they love our clothing. They feel great in our clothing. They love the way it makes them feel. They love the way seeing their kid is so excited to wear this, and we've gotten comments before of like, OMG, it was always a struggle to get my son into a polo, like a nice polo. Like I could not get it. But now ever since like Palmer polos, he loves it. He wants to wear it all the time. And that is right there, like even more of like why we're doing what we're doing. Because not only are we making diabetics feel good in our clothing by, having slits and pockets for them, but it's also like knowing somebody that probably knew nothing about type 1 diabetes, now they not only know more, they're more educated about type 1 diabetes, but they're also wanting to give back to type 1 diabetes and help us all find that cure for it.
Yeah, for sure. Wow. So for anybody who might be watching this, who maybe has a newly diagnosed child, and if they're in public school, there's something called the 504 plan. And that is basically a legal document from the state that guarantees the accommodations that your child is going to be safe in school. And so obviously a private school doesn't have to follow this because they are not publicly funded, but a public school does. And actually our kids' school, they don't have it's not a 504 form, but they have their own version of it, which is great. And every year where they start, we review it and we update it with the newest information. And it just talks about a lot of things, what we can and cannot do, and all this. And it's great. I'm so happy again of the kids' school.
And then it also, for the one for your kid's school, it talks about like items you're going to be providing to the school,
Mhm.
equipment you're going to be providing to the schools, snacks you're going to be providing to the schools that the school nurse can then give to your kids.
Yeah. And it's just honestly, just working together. But for a public school, the state had to, make set guidelines, and the 504 isn't just for a type 1 diabetic, it's any child with a disability, really.
Mhm.
But I did wanna run through some of the stuff that comes out of it so people are aware of if you have a child with type 1, you need to make sure that you have a 504 plan at your school, and so these are some of the things that it kinda covers and helps protect your child, and so um, first off, it allows them the ability to actually manage their diabetes while at the school. And so that is them being able to monitor their blood sugars, give themselves insulin, for example,
Having their cell phone out.
having their
Gonna
cell phone out. I know that's a big one. Like even with my kid's school, like he's going to a different campus next year, and they have a very strong no cell phone out policy. You have to have it away at all times. Like you can get in trouble if it even comes out. And if there's some type of emergency you need to use it, they actually have a dedicated area that you have to go to, like between classes, and basically get permission to use it. But like, my kids will have the ability to get their phone out to be able to check their diabetes because of it. And
Yeah,
I'm sure that's
and we've even talked about the potential of with Parker going to that new campus next year of exploring getting him an Apple Watch where it's not a whole cell phone he has to take out. He can like look at it and it's there, but
yeah.
I'm sure that's a whole other
Mhm.
safety thing because you can basically do everything that you do on your phone on your Apple Watch. So
Exactly. And so yeah, being able to basically monitor their blood sugars and give themselves insulin. Um, They get accommodations when it comes to snacks and meals, and so obviously they need to be able to have additional resources to eat if their blood sugar is going low. Basically unlimited bathroom breaks and go passes to go to the nurse, so they don't have to the school cannot tell them they're not allowed to go to the nurse and all that. There are academic adjustments like extended time on tests, and assignments where, again, if they have to go to a nurse office, they can make up work or have a little bit more time. Or if they are in a situation where they're really high or really low and they're not in a great mindset to take a test or assignment, they're able to reschedule it. As well as like staff training and the school being aware and all that type of stuff. And then also communication with the parents, where this is what the school's going to do to communicate, and how the parents can also communicate to the school about what is going on. So that is kind of what the 504 plan covers. And again, this is only for public schools, it's not for private. But at least with our kids' school, they have their own version of this because, again, they're doing things the right way. Sadly, not every school. And I also did want to touch on, because I've heard this from a lot of parents, even though a public school has a 504 plan, it doesn't mean the school is actually supportive in any way. And sadly, there's some schools that are fantastic. There's some schools that are not. But I've heard just horror stories from parents where they get no support. Yes, legally, the school has to allow them to monitor and have snacks and do these type of things, but they're not supportive. They don't have a good school nurse or anything. And it's really sad that that's the case. But I mean, I remember when we were at one of the Touch by Type 1 conferences, and we were sitting in on one of the panels about stuff, and they were asking like who what people were, or you parents, and it actually blew my mind how many school nurses
Yes.
came to the conference to learn more about it,
Mhm.
because they wanted to, because they had a handful of kids in their school that they're taking care of, and they're like, "Man, free diabetes conference? I'm gonna go learn so I can be a better school nurse." And man, kudos to those school nurses that go above and beyond outside of their job to do a better job. And man, it made my heart so happy when I
Yeah.
hear somebody doing that.
Yeah, that's truly amazing. So with having this episode, I feel like it's even been educational for me. I've learned things that I didn't know. But also, we really want to encourage our Palmer fam to reach out to us. Even if you're a parent of a newly diagnosed child, or you're a caregiver, or you're a family member and know a loved one, really reach out to us. We want to learn. We are here to learn, but we also want you to feel that you have a support group within us, and that is why we are doing this YouTube channel. And it's really to keep the conversation going two-way. So I encourage you to reach out, like, comment, subscribe, and let's keep this conversation going, because we can only get better together. So thanks for tuning in, Palmer fam. See you in the next one. Bye.
Bye.